Okay, grade 8. We are now doing chapter 4, lesson 3. It starts on page 287. You need to know function, table, independent variable, dependent variable, all this, okay? All right. What do they say here? A function is a relation or a relationship in which every member of the domain, which we are calling the input, is paired exactly with one member in the range. Please write this sentence in your book and highlight it. A function is a relation in which every member of the domain input value, domain is called input value, is paired with exactly one member of the range, what we are calling the output value. Okay? So when you're thinking about a function, I want you to think about equations, machines, all this. Okay? Now, let's look at our success criteria. Make sure when you're writing your notes, you start with the title of the chapter, the lesson, the title of the lesson, and the date. Your success criteria. Every day I always say you should read correctly. You should know what the question wants from you. Only answer what the question has asked. Don't answer something it did not ask you. How many parts should you answer in a question? If you know how to read, that tells me you know what the question wants from you. That also tells me you know how many parts you need to answer. Okay? All answers should be in a complete sentence. We didn't start today. This has always been going on. Okay? You need to know what the answer is and you need to put it in a box. We've always identified the answer by putting it in the box. You should know by now. Okay? You must show all your steps. You must know all the parts to a function. You must know how to define a function, which we just did over there. That's the definition of a function. You must know what is an independent variable. You must know what is a dependent variable. You must be able to justify how you know. You must know how to fill a function table. You must know how to state the domain and range of a function. You must know what values of the domain and what values of the range make sense for any situation and justify your reasoning. You must know how to write a function from a story. You must know how to use the function you wrote. You must know how to use the function you wrote to solve the question. All this, if you know how to do, then you are successful in the lesson. That is how you gauge whether you've understood or you've not understood. All right. A function is a special relationship where each input has only one output, where each domain has only one range. That is how you define a function. Simple as that. Think of a function as a machine. When you put in something, you get something out. Okay, so here are some examples I have written. When you go to the vending machine, you put in a dirham, you press the button, the bottled water comes out, or a can of soda comes out, or candy in a packet comes out. Whatever is inside the vending machine that you're buying. Okay? You put money, something comes out. When you're baking, what do? You put the raw cake inside the oven. After some time, you remove a baked cake. Okay? So when you're baking, you put in the raw butter and then the cake comes out. When you take the elevator on the ground floor and you're going up, or you're taking the elevator from up and you're going down, you enter the elevator, you press the button, it takes you to the floor you said you want to go. If you press 3, you get out on the 3rd floor. If you press 7, you get out on the 7th floor. Okay? Like that. So when you take the elevator from the ground floor, you press the floor you're going to, you get out on the floor you pressed. So I have said functions are machines. Think of them like that. You give it something, it gives you something out. Okay? Now, how to read and identify the parts of a function. F of x is equal to negative 3x. That's how I read this. F of x is equal to negative 3x. Or I read the function of x is equal to negative 3x. Okay? This part is called f of x. That's how you read it. It means it's the output of the function. It means it is the range values of the function. It means it's the dependent variable of the function. So like I said, you read it f of x or you read it as function of x. Okay? Now, remember, this is your function. This is the output. This is the input. You are here in the middle. This is your bridge. Output, input. Okay? Now, this part of the equation, so the x, the one that you replace, that number you put over here for x, we are calling that the input, or we are calling that the domain. Then the independent variable, and it can be any real number. That means it can be a fraction, a decimal, irrational number, a rational number, natural, whole, integer, percent, perfect square, square root. All those names we learned in term 1 for real numbers. We use them here for the input. You need to know when it is okay to use a fraction, when it is okay to use a decimal, when it is okay to use a irrational number, when it is okay to use a rational number. From the question, you should be able to determine whether it makes sense to use a whole number, a negative number, a natural number only. You should be able to know this. Okay? All right. Now here we are going to define the independent and dependent variable. What is the independent variable? The variable for the domain. Why are we calling it independent? Because it can be any number. Most of the time we call it x. The x is the independent variable, the input. This is the independent variable. Okay? The dependent variable, this one over here, the output. It is called the dependent variable because it depends on the domain. You need the domain to get the range. Without the domain, you cannot get the range. So, the dependent variable is the variable for the range. Because it